Good day, everyone. It's good to be back again. Thank you for those who subscribe to the channel. We are now at 82 subscriber, road to 100. Please subscribe, like, and share. And I usually talk about geopolitics, so let's get straight away. So today I'll be looking at South Korea. South Korea defense industry. South Korea defense industry is becoming one of the fastest growing defense industries in the world, and we're entering this new world of multipolar, where when you look like 40 years ago, between the USSR and the Western world, America, they're the ones who had monopoly over technology. So if you didn't align with any of this country, probably your country or your economic power wouldn't progress. And then now we came to the fall of the Soviet Union, and America was now the sole superpower which had monopoly in terms of technology, asset, and money. And most countries were forced to align with America, and that's why you see the world today is dominated by America, because it was the one that had the monopoly over technology. And then again, Russia started coming up. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, they organized themselves. They started coming up because, and then we had China now. China also came up, and if you look at defense industry, you see that the America is the first biggest defense industry, military industrial complex, and then the Russians, and then the Chinese. So we're now entering in a multipolar world where the cake is slowly becoming smaller for countries like America, let's say Russia and China, and mostly America, because it was the biggest. It has the biggest industrial military complex. A country like South Korea was nowhere to be seen in the top 10 countries of defense industry. Now South Korea is the 8th largest military producer. It supplies arms to Australia, Indonesia. Poland recently just signed a $15 billion deal to acquire tanks and long-range missiles. So it's coming to be seen. Oh, it also supplies to the UAE, before I forget. So it started to be seen that countries are now seeing the defense industry as a very, very lucrative business. And the reason why South Korea defense industry has grown is that they are saying that their arms are very affordable and their production is much quicker. I'll give you a case like for Poland. Poland wanted to acquire the same military equipment from America, but they were taking longer. And Poland, because there's a war in Ukraine, because of the Russian invasion, it has to also, even though there's no sign that Russia might attack Poland, but you never know, things just happen. And so it has to look for itself and for its citizens and for its well-being. And that's why the South Korean were looked upon. So South Korea is slowly becoming this, unheard, this low-key military industrial complex. And there are various factors why. We must remember that South Korea has a very, very aggressive neighbor, the North Korea. So this forces South Korea to invest in its defense industries. And the companies that are even manufacturing these equipment are the typical, non-militarized company like Hyundai, Samsung. Samsung is also very invested in the South Korean military. If you look at China is also, South Korea sees China as a threat, because China offers a safe haven for North Korea. There are talks that even North Korea, Kim Jong-un has dug so many underground tunnels in his country, that if a war was to break out between North Korea and South Korea, or between America and North Korea, and if was threatened, there is actually a special tunnel that leads him to China, where he can go and seek safe haven and refuge. So South Korea feels that apart from just creating weapons for its own country, it also has now to enter into this business of the defense industry. And analysts show that the defense industry has grown by over 200% in since from 2019 to now. Last year, the year 2021, they sold defense equipment worth $8 billion, and it's rising and rising. And with how we know South Korean technology, Samsung, the Hyundai, the Daewoo, all this technology, it's very hard not to believe that they have the capabilities to make this kind of technology. And what I'm seeing here is very interesting. I see two things. I feel that the military industrial complex in America probably is not happy with this because it's now starting to see that there's so much competition when it comes to the defense industry. And because if Poland was supposed to be one of their customer, let's say UAE, and now they're going to South Korea, they are seeing that their market is shrinking slowly and slowly. And this probably has not been taken well in America. But also I see it's also a chance for these countries also now to compete on on effectiveness, because probably because people say American arms and military technology is very expensive. Probably it's time also that now if there is enough competition, probably the Americans will lower their prices and they'll improve their quality because now there's competition, there's no monopoly. And if you look at how where the world is going now, we are entering. That's what I'm saying. We're entering into a multipolar world where technology is not just a monopoly of one country. It's now a monopoly of, I wouldn't say even a monopoly. It's shared amongst many countries. Let's not forget also India is rising. It's a country that's rising. India very soon is going to join the defense industry. Japan the other day just announced it's investing $300 billion into its military. Japan has very good technology. We all know Japanese technology. They're also going to enter this race of military armament. Who knows? Probably in the future, even Arab countries. We saw how Saudi Arabia is also investing in its military industrial complex so that it can reduce its dependence on foreign military arms. When you come to Europe, Germany has just announced that it's investing $300 billion. Although Germany has a military industrial complex, but it's not as that big. But this investment could change significantly. So in future, I think it will create a very competitive ground that countries will not be forced to buy arms from the typical China, Russia, America. There'll be other diversified. Let's also not forget Israel is a big player in the military industry. And this is a multipolar world that we are looking at. Reason for South Korea, apart from North Korea and China being seen as hostile neighbor, let's not forget that also America is pushing this kind of this kind of approach because America is looking at to solidify the largest. I think this is America, for me, if you ask me, has the largest strategic military alliance in the history of any nation in the world. Some might like America, some might not, but when you on paper, America has the largest military. So it is pushing for South Korea to be military prepared, Japan to be military prepared, because we understand that the politics of this southeastern China, the China Sea. So that the fact that there is this push, it also forces that the South Koreans to also start investing in military hardware, because there's this push that they cannot also depend on America. Imagine if a war was to break out today, and all these these countries are depending on American military hardware. We know that military hardware production is not that easy to come by. Let alone if you're producing for America to also produce for your allies, it's not that easy and also transportation of this cargo, there are a lot of risk because it's at the middle of war. These cargoes might be shot down. So also America, there is that encouragement that each country should now start depending on its own, probably using a bit of American technology and their own, so that in case the war or conflict was to break out, it's easy to tackle and defend rather than depend on America superiority, because also America is now starting to understand that it cannot be everywhere at once. Remember that America is heavily invested in the Ukraine war in Europe. Let's not forget that America also has the African Command in Africa. Let's not forget that America is heavily invested in the Middle East. Let's not forget that America is invested in the South China Sea. Let's not forget that America is also invested in South. So if all this conflict was to break out, it would be stretched. So for it to perform effectively, it needs to build satellite countries. Satellite countries are like South Korea, Japan, and give them the free will of doing things. That's why you can see now Japan is starting to rearm, because even the Japanese are realizing we cannot depend on America that much. It's our ally, but we also need to watch for ourselves, and that's why the Germans are also doing. So America is creating this global alliance that, if you ask me, I've never, since the history, there's never been this kind of alliance like mine. If you look at history, you realize that there were these alliances, but most of these alliances were done through domination. Me coming, conquering you, forcing your people to be under me, like the USSR. So there was not this like-minded. But if you look at Japan and America, there's thus, parallel like-minded of understanding each other. South Korea the same. Even though South Korea and Japan have had issue because Japan colonized South Korea, but because they have this friend, this overlooking friend, this authority above, which is the America, which brings them closer. It's hard for them to be enemies. It's easy for them to be frenemies. So if you look at how America is positioning itself, it's positioning itself in such a way that even if China and Russia try to compete, it won't be that easy, because if you go to the Asian country, America has treaty with Thailand, Singapore, Philippines, Vietnam, as in it's even if they are not as strong as treaty as Japan and South Korea, there are certain military treaties between these countries, and if you look at how there's this talk that America is in decline. Yes, probably it might not, and also people need to understand that a country that control the very fabric of economics and military dominance, it cannot just decline like that. And this time, the rise of China, Russia, and India, this time as we look, will now define how strong America is. America is not defined by how strong it was. The last time it was defined by the USSR, and it emerged as a very strong country. But now it's facing another challenge. And I believe if it emerges out of this challenge more strong, it will become, I don't think anything can now, from outside, probably from within, probably the social changes can destroy America, but I don't feel anything from outside can do that. Anyway, I'll be looking at the South Korean defense industry, and I'll try to do a more analysis about the arms. The industry is just now starting to come up. As I said, it's number 8 now in the world, and they are saying that this coming year they're even expecting more sales, an additional $5 billion in sales of arms to other countries. The defense industry of South Korea has been low-key because they don't want to give out much information. Now they're even looking to manufacture planes, submarines. They are looking to go all into research and development into these projects, and try also and see if they can get a market of this defense industry. Anyway, guys, it's always good to be here and talk to you guys. I always enjoy. Road to 100 subscriber. Thank you. Ciao.